What's up everyone, we're going to be going through the best NBA player props on Prizepicks today. Now I did want to show you the results from yesterday's picks from my exclusive Discord group, and as you guys see we actually got 19 picks correct, which is absolutely insane. So we're on a huge hot streak, but if you want to get 19 picks right like me, win more bets and receive the best picks from some of the best bettors in the world for less than a cup of coffee, you can access the exclusive Discord and meet some of the best sport bettors in the game by joining my Patreon, which will be linked down below in the description. Once you join, you'll have complete access to the Discord and can start winning more bets today. So make sure to join my Patreon using the link in the description. And here's one of our members who just signed up and won himself $750 just yesterday. Another member who won $201 for the 7th day in a row since joining my Discord. So guys, if you want to win big money like our members, the link will be in the description. So go join the Patreon to have access to the Discord group. And I will be continuing to upload every single day on this channel the best bets and props. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my daily uploads. So quick shout out to Amarion Green 5860 who said cash, and shouts out to Chunky Monkey J5B who said first. So shouts out to them, and if you do want to win a shout out in the next video, all you have to do is comment down below in this video and like it, and you can be in the running to win a shout out in the next one. Alright, so let's get straight into the first pick. And when it comes to these picks, I'm not saying to chuck all of them into a parlay and hope for the best. Pick and choose the ones that you like and the ones that work best for you. So the first pick we're talking about is none other than Tyler Herro, and this one is actually for 3-pointers made. This one is actually for 2.5 and this one is for less. So here it is right here, Tyler Herro. Now this one we've actually seen Tyler go on the under in 2 out of the last 5 games, which is interesting to see. Now, when we look at those last 5 games, we see that on April 10th, they faced off against Chicago, where he had 2 3-points made there. Then on April 12th, faced off against the New Orleans Pelicans, where he had 2 threes in that matchup. Then 3 threes against Chicago on April 17th. April 19th, faced off against Atlanta, and then had 5 threes there. And then 3 threes against Cleveland on April 21st. So we have actually seen Tyler Herro do a fantastic job, over the last 5. So he has only gone on the under in 2 out of the last 5 games. But his average over the last 5 is also 3 as well. Now, when it comes to this matchup, we do, very much like the under. But first, we are going to look at the matchup that they do face off against, because Miami do actually face off against Cleveland. Now, this is obviously game 2 of the NBA playoffs. Obviously, they did end up losing game 1. So coming into this next game is definitely going to be interesting. But looking at Cleveland Cavaliers, we do see that Cleveland Cavaliers do rank 13th when it comes to 3-point percentages allowed. They also rank when it actually comes to 3-point attempts allowed. We do see that the Cavaliers rank 13th as well. And then 3 points made allowed, they also rank 13th. So they rank, pretty much the same in every single category. So 13th all around. And because of that, we do very much like the under for this situation here. A big reason being is that although Cleveland, don't really rank the highest, they still do rank very well. 13th is a very good, sort of ranking, especially during the regular season. But on top of that, they also do a fantastic job at restricting threes to the actual guard position as well, which is what Tyler Herro is. And for that reason, we do very much like the under for this situation here. We definitely see someone, like Tyler Herro going on the under due to those reasons. Now, looking at Cleveland, they are also a very slow-paced team. Miami are also a slow-paced team, so we aren't expecting a lot of volume in this matchup coming into this game. It's obviously playoff time, and with Jimmy Butler no longer in this Miami team, a lot of the defensive pressure and defensive focus has definitely been on Tyler Herro, so we definitely see that affecting this game greatly. Now, looking at someone like Tyler Herro, obviously in the most recent game, in game 1, he did actually see himself have actually 3 points made. So he did go on the over, but just by 0.5, so it's not really convincing enough to us in that first matchup, and that's why we are sticking to the under. Now, looking at Tyler Herro against Cleveland during the regular season, we actually did see them play twice. So first was they played each other on the 8th of December. Now in that matchup, he actually had 5 3 points made there, and then on top of that, a rematch matched again on the 29th of January, and he actually had 4 3-points made there. So he did go on the over in those 2 games. However, like I mentioned, guys, with the fact that it is now playoff time, we definitely are seeing a very different strategy coming from Tyler Herro and also, this Cavaliers team, and it can definitely affect Tyler Herro's game greatly. So, for that reason, although he has gone on the over in the regular season and also in the most recent game, we are going a little bit against the grain here. But when you look at what the bookies are saying, bookies also have been favored for the under as well. So that works out in our favor there. So Tyler Herro, 2.5, 3 points made for less, I think is a fantastic pick. Now, getting into the next one, we're actually going to be talking about Max Strus. So Max Strus, obviously, we are looking at the other side of, this game. Max Strus plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and this one is for 8 points, and this one actually is for less. Now, looking at Max Strus, we've actually seen him go on the under in 1 out of the last 5 games. Now, looking at those 5 games, on April 5th, they faced off against San Antonio Spurs, where he had 3 points there. Then April 7th, faced off against Sacramento, where he had 11 points, and then had 9 points against Chicago on April 9th. On April 12th, faced off against New York Knicks, having 19 points, and then 9 points against Miami on April 21st. So when we look at someone, like Max Strus, we have seen him go on the under in 1 out of the last 5 games. Now, his average over the last 5 is 10.2, so slightly above this line for sure. But we do very much like this next matchup against, Miami Heat. Now, obviously, when we look at Miami Heat, Miami Heat do actually rank 7th when it comes to points allowed, which definitely, is a big reason why we do like the under for the situation here. Now, looking at Max Strus, although Miami's defense has definitely suffered quite a bit ever since losing Jimmy Butler, what we have seen, though, is that Miami do still a fantastic job at restricting points to the small forward position, which is what Max Strus does play. So we definitely still see that affecting him greatly coming into this matchup, no doubt about it. And we are definitely liking the under for this situation here. Now, looking at both these teams, like I mentioned, with the last pick, it is obviously going to be a pretty slow-paced game. So we aren't expecting a lot of volume, which leads to probably less points overall. So less, pace, less volume, and less opportunity for Max Strus there. And the fact that Strus isn't really the main player for this team, we do see others. It's definitely going to affect it greatly. Now, when we look at actually Max Strus as well, what we also do see is that when it comes to the matchup against Miami, we do see when we have seen him face off against Miami, they played each other on the 29th of January. In that matchup, he had 8 points there. So he actually did go, on the under in that matchup, or pretty much hit the line. And then he had 11 points in the second game. So although for those reasons, we still do very much like the under for this situation here, due to the fact that when we look at Max Strus, coming into playoff time, it is definitely a very different ball game to the regular season. Like I always mentioned, defensive strategies definitely do change coming into the playoffs. It is definitely a lot more focused in on each team, and that's why we are expecting Max Strus to definitely have a different sort of usage rate coming into this next matchup. So for that reason, Max Strus, keep an eye out for his line. So Max Strus for 8 points for less, I think is a fantastic pick. So getting into the next pick, we're going to be talking about none other than Brandon Podziemski. Now, this one's a fantastic one, 4 points for 13.5, and this one actually is for less. Now, looking at Brandon Podziemski, we actually have seen him go on the under in 3 out of the last 5 games. Now, obviously, looking at the 3 out of the last 5, or the all 5 in general, we see on April 10th, they faced off against San Antonio Spurs, where he had 7 points there. Then had 10 points against Portland Trail Blazers on April 12th, which is interesting to see. Now, moving on from that, they faced off against LA Clippers on April 14th and had 19 points there. Then 3 points against Memphis Grizzlies on April 16th, and then April 21st against Houston Rockets had 14 points in that matchup. So we actually have seen Brandon Podziemski do a fantastic job. Now, obviously, when we do look at Brandon Podziemski, we have seen him do a great job, not only, during the regular season, but also at the start of game 1. However, coming into this next one, we should definitely see him go on the under here. Now, getting into more of the details, obviously his average over the last 5 is 10.6, so significantly below this line. Now, when we look at actually, their matchup, Golden State Warriors face off against the Houston Rockets. Now, looking at the matchup between both of these teams, we do know Golden State Warriors did come in with a record of 48-34 into the regular season and at a 58.5% win percentage. So they had the 7th spot. They also had to play in the play-ins, which was interesting there. And then now they face off against the Houston Rockets, who have a record of 52-30 with a 63.4% win percentage. So they did a great job there, Houston Rockets. Obviously, we have seen that Houston did a great job during the regular season, hence the reason why they do have such a high, sort of ranking in the Western Conference, and the Western Conference is tough. But looking at Houston Rockets in more detail, we do see that Houston Rockets, when it comes to points allowed, they rank 6th. So they rank very, very high, which is a big sign for us coming into this game. Now, another big sign is that when it comes to Houston, they also do a fantastic job at restricting points to the shooting guard position, which is usually what Brandon Podziemski does play. Now, for that reason, we do very much like the under for this one. Now, although Houston, or the matchup with Houston in game 1, we did see him go on the over, he only made it over by 0.5. So just made it over by 0.5. It's definitely not convincing enough to us, coming into this next one. And that's why we do very much like the under for this game too. We are expecting Houston to make big adjustments. Obviously, Houston did lose game 1. So, the coaching staff, the players themselves, they are definitely going to make massive adjustments in order to try to restrict and win game 2. And we definitely see that having a huge effect on Brandon Podziemski for sure. Now, looking at Brandon Podziemski, especially during the regular season, they actually faced off against Houston quite a lot of times. We actually saw them play each other on the 2nd of November, where he had 12 points in that matchup. Then played each other again on the 5th of December, where he had 8 points. And then on the 11th of December, had 8 points again. The 13th of February had 18 points. And on the 6th, he actually had 19 points in that matchup. So we actually did see him go on the under multiple times, 3 out of those 5 games. So, the fact that he did go on the under more than he went on the over is definitely a huge sign to us on why we are liking the under for this situation here. So for someone like Brandon Podziemski, although he is a great player, we definitely should see him go on the under, as we are expecting other players in this roster to take, a lot of the usage rate away from him. And we could see other stars in this Warriors team have a little bit more points from them. So for that reason, Brandon Podziemski, 13.5 points for less, I think is a great pick. All right, so as you all know, I do want to get these picks out to you as soon as possible, but Prizepicks is delayed with some of their lines. So here are a couple of players you should definitely watch out for when their lines drop. So the first player we're going to be talking about is none other than Jrue Holiday. Now, as you all know, Jrue Holiday, fantastic player from none other than the Boston Celtics, and he had himself a great season because he actually averaged 11.1 points, ranking him 104th, 4.3 rebounds, ranking him 101st, 3.9 assists, ranking him 64th, and had a 44.3% field goal percentage. So he did a fantastic job when it comes to, for the Boston Celtics. And when it comes to the Boston Celtics, they did do a great job during the regular season because they actually landed themselves the 2nd spot in the Eastern Conference. Now, we are heading into game 2 between the matchup between Boston Celtics and Orlando Magic. Now, looking at both of these teams, like I mentioned, Celtics did get the 2nd spot in the Eastern Conference with a record of 61-21. That is a 74% win percentage. And then on the other side of the table, you do see Orlando Magic having the 7th spot in the Eastern Conference with a tied record of 41 wins and 41 losses. So 50% flat there. Now, when it comes to someone like Jrue Holiday, we do very much, think this is going to be an interesting game from him. Now, when it comes to actually Orlando Magic, so we do see Orlando Magic rank very well, as we see Orlando Magic rank 1st in points allowed. Now, moving on into assists allowed, we see that they rank 1st as well. And then rebounds allowed, we also see them rank 3rd. So this is during the regular season. Now, obviously, playoff is definitely a little bit different, but we are still seeing that Orlando Magic are still a great defensive team. So even though they did end up losing that first game Orlando ended up losing that first game, we definitely still see Orlando continuing to put the pressure on defense and trying to restrict them as much as they can. Now, when it comes to Boston Celtics, they did have themselves a very, very good game one. They actually won 103-86, so a pretty comfortable win there. But when it comes to Jrue Holiday, we do very much like the under for this situation here for someone like Jrue Holiday. Now, a big reason being for this is due to the fact that when we look at Jrue Holiday, we do see that Jrue, isn't really a main player when it comes to usage rate out there on the floor. Yes, he does get a lot of minutes. He did have 33 minutes against Orlando, but he's not really a stat sheet stuffer. He does a lot of the intangible things out there for this Boston Celtics team, and we think that other players such as Jaylen Brown, other players like Kristaps are definitely going to take a lot more of the usage rate away from Jrue Holiday coming into this next game. Now, looking at Jrue Holiday, especially when it came to his game one against Orlando, we did actually see him score 9 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds. So he actually went on the under in 2 out of the 3 lines compared to his averages, and we are expecting a similar result in this next game. Now, when it comes to Jrue Holiday, we wouldn't really focus on points, rebounds, and assists. He has a pretty decent usage rate in all 3 departments, but we are expecting Orlando Magic to still do a fantastic job when it comes to restricting points, rebounds, and assists to Jrue Holiday specifically as well. Now, when we look also at Boston Celtics, we do see that Jason Tatum is a game time decision. It hasn't been said whether he is going to play or isn't. Obviously, he did have a bit of a hard fall in game 1, so hopefully he will be able to play game 2. But even if he is out for this next game, we don't actually see that affecting Jrue Holiday drastically. We actually see it affecting all other players, more, increasingly. So for that reason, either way, if Jason Tatum does play or doesn't, we don't really see it affecting Jrue Holiday drastically, and that's why we still do like the under no matter the situation there. So for that reason, I definitely would keep an eye out for Jrue Holiday, especially against this matchup between Boston and Magic. Both teams are very, very slow paced, and slow paced teams leads to less volume, and less volume for Jrue Holiday specifically. So for that reason, keep an eye out for the under here. If the line is too close to his averages, then definitely look to go on the under. Now, getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about Donovan Mitchell. So as you all know, Donovan Mitchell, great player for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, he's done a fantastic job, during the regular season, because he actually brought this Cleveland team to a very good record. Now, looking at Donovan Mitchell specifically, however, we did see him average 24 points in the actual regular season, 4.5 rebounds, also dished out 5 assists, and had a 44.3% field goal percentage. Now, when we look at actually the rankings, we do see that he did rank 16th in points, he ranked 91st in rebounds, 38th in assists, and then field goal percentage had 96. So did a decent job there. Now, looking at Donovan Mitchell, we do very, very much like this matchup against the Miami Heat. Now, looking at Miami Heat, obviously Cavaliers, like I mentioned, did have the best spot in the Eastern Conference and had a record of 64-18. So they did a fantastic job there. On top of that, they had a 78% win percentage during that regular season. And then we look at Miami Heat, who actually were able to clinch themselves the Eastern Conference 8th spot. And on that, they did have a record of 37-45. So a 45.1% win percentage. So a little bit of difference between both of these teams. Obviously, Cavaliers led the pack while Heat are all the way at the bottom of the pack. So this is a matchup between, 1v8. Now, looking at Cavaliers and Heat, the matchup itself in game 1, we did see Miami Heat do a pretty good job. However, Donovan Mitchell and the Cavaliers were able to take the win 121-100. Now, looking at Miami Heat when it comes to their defensive ability, we do see that they rank 7th when it comes to points allowed during the regular season. They rank 15th when it comes to assists allowed, and then rebounds allowed, we did see them rank 19th. Now, when it comes to someone like Donovan Mitchell, obviously, he is a great player, and we do very much like the over for this situation here. A big reason being is that when we actually look at Miami Heat, although they do rank pretty mid-tier and a little bit higher in that points category, you do have to remember that, during the middle of the season, they did have a massive trade where obviously they got rid of one of their greatest defenders, Jimmy Butler, and traded them in for other players like Andrew Wiggins and a couple of others. And it definitely had taken a massive hit on their defense. So obviously this is looking at the averages, and they did have, Wiggins and others during the second half of the season, but it still puts him in a pretty, inaccurate ranking, because when we've actually seen Jimmy Butler move on to his new team, we've seen Miami Heat's defense really take a massive beating, pretty much a massive tanking to it. So, Miami Heat aren't really the greatest defensive team right now, even though they were always a good defensive team with Jimmy Butler, and it definitely did show in that first game. Donovan Mitchell was able to take advantage of it, going on 30 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds. So he did a fantastic job there. He actually went over on, 2 out of the 3 categories, which I thought was great to see. And because of that, we do very much like the over for this situation here. We definitely see Miami Heat not being the same defensive team that they were at the start of the season, and it definitely did show. And it showed in that most recent game against, Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland, and that's why we do see Donovan taking advantage once again. When we look at both of these teams as well, what we also do see is that Donovan Mitchell has definitely taken just a massive usage rate when it comes playoff time. Obviously, a lot of the Cleveland Cavaliers roster is starting to lean on Donovan Mitchell coming into these playoffs. We saw that in game 1, and we should expect that in game 2 as well. And just off sheer volume alone, which Donovan Mitchell loves to, shoot the ball and get some high field goals out there, we should definitely see that just off sheer volume alone, be able to see him go on the over. Now, there isn't really one to focus on. I think all have the capability to go on the over, so just keep an eye out for Donovan Mitchell as a whole. Now, getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about Jimmy Butler III. So Jimmy Butler III, as we all know, great player from the Golden State Warriors. Literally just talked about his former team, Miami Heat. But when it comes to Jimmy Butler during the regular season, so this was his time with the Warriors and also with the Heat, we saw him average 17.5 points, 5.4 rebounds, 5.4 assists, while also shooting 50.4% from the field. So he did a fantastic job for the Golden State Warriors, and obviously this is a mix of his time with the also Miami Heat. But when we look at Jimmy Butler, we did see him do a fantastic job in game 1 against, their actual matchup, which is the Houston Rockets. Now, obviously, when you look at the Houston Rockets, it definitely was a big game, for both of these teams. But, Warriors were able to take the win. Now, looking at, Houston and also the Golden State Warriors, where they do rank, we did see the Houston Rockets rank 2nd in the Western Conference and actually had a record of 52-30. So they had a 63.4% win percentage, while the Golden State Warriors had to go through the play-ins, but they landed themselves a 7th spot with a 48-34 record and a 58.5% win percentage. So, the Golden State Warriors did a fantastic job throughout the regular season, and we definitely did see that for sure. Now, when we look at, Jimmy Butler and his matchup against the Houston Rockets, we did see that Houston Rockets during the regular season actually ranked 6th in points allowed, 2nd in assists allowed, and when it comes to rebounds allowed, they do rank 4th. Now, Jimmy Butler is a great player, and he actually did have himself a very, very good game in game 1. They actually beat the Rockets 95-85. He had 25 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, so he was able to beat his line on all 3 categories. However, coming into this next game, we do still like the under for it. We think that game 1, and I think a lot of these game 1s that we did see throughout the playoffs, is definitely a first game to have both of these teams really have a sense of what it's like playing each other. Obviously, Houston came out in that game trying to play their normal regular season defense, but now that it is playoff time, they did lose game 1, and we are expecting huge adjustments there. And the huge adjustments we are expecting can definitely have a huge effect to Jimmy Butler's usage rate. Now, obviously, he isn't the main player for this team. It will, be Curry. So because of that, we definitely see Curry remaining his usage rate as high as he can. And then Jimmy Butler on the other side, we could definitely see a bit of a different story. And we could see someone like Jimmy Butler, have a bit of less usage rate and a lot more defensive focus to try to restrict him as much as they can. We have seen, Houston do a great job all season. I think what Houston does very, very well is that they do a great job at slowing down faster paced teams. We all do know that, you know, obviously Golden State Warriors are a very, very fast paced team. But what we did see and we have seen throughout the season is that Rockets do a fantastic job slowing them down. And we actually did see that even in game 1. So we are expecting a similar result or a similar sort of outcome in this next matchup. No doubt about it. So definitely keep an eye out for Jimmy Butler in this game 2. We definitely like the under for this one, but keep an eye out for the line. If it is too close to his averages, then definitely look to go on the under there. Now, getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about Orlando Magic's Paolo Banchero. So, Banchero, great player. Like, you know, we all do know, he has done a fantastic job for Orlando Magic because he's actually averaged 25.9 points, 7.5 rebounds, 4.8 assists, while also shooting 45.2% from the field. So he's done a fantastic job for his Orlando Magic team. And when it comes to the Orlando Magic, they do have themselves a very, very good matchup because the Orlando Magic face off against the Boston Celtics, which we touched on earlier. Now, looking at this matchup as well, we also do see that, you know, Orlando Magic and also Boston, we already just touched on this recently, but, you know, we did see Boston have the 2nd spot and then also Magic had the 7th spot. But now looking at the defensive side of Boston Celtics, we do see that Boston do rank 2nd in points allowed, 3rd in assists allowed, and then when it comes to rebounds allowed, we see them ranked 13th. So they look, you know, and have played very, very decent throughout the whole season, and we should definitely see him go on the under once again in this next matchup. Now, obviously, looking at game 1, he did have himself a pretty fantastic game. He had 36 points, 11 rebounds, and also 4 assists. But like we've always mentioned, when it comes to, you know, especially teams that have won championships like Boston, we are expecting Boston to come and actually make some massive adjustments. I could definitely see a big change in this game. So, you know, for that reason, we do very much like the under coming into this next one. Although Paolo did end up having himself a great game, we are expecting Boston to really put a lot more defensive pressure on him in this next game for sure, which should actually lead him to the under for this one. Now, looking at both Magic and Celtics, both are pretty slow-paced teams. Now, we had a pretty low-pace or low-scoring game between these teams as well in that game 1. You know, nothing really too crazy. So we are expecting a similar situation because low pace means less volume, and less volume means more likely to see someone like Paolo go on the under for this one. So for that reason, I definitely would keep an eye out for the under for someone like Banchero coming into this matchup. Like I always mentioned, you want to keep an eye out for the line. There really isn't one to focus on. I think he has the capability to go on the under in either 3 of them. So definitely keep an eye out for points, rebounds, and assists for Paolo Banchero.